The Big 12 had 5 projected elite teams coming into the season, but is now down to 2 after big wins from Iowa State and Houston on Wednesday.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Thursday, and welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, a daily national college hoop show, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host for today's show, Andy Patton. You are joining at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. Want to give a special shout out to those everyday listeners and those of you hanging out with us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord channel. Remind you all that you can listen to the show ad-free on Amazon Music. And of course, a reminder that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Folks, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, we got a ton of great results from Wednesday to discuss. We got 2 5-0 teams in the Big 12. We got a 10-game winning streak for Tom Izzo in Michigan State. We got 3 overtime in the Atlantic 10 Conference. Plus, to close out the show, we got 5 games to preview for today. We start the show with the 2 Big 12 teams that are 5-0 in conference play. Iowa State, who cruised past Kansas 74-57 on Wednesday. Plus, we got Houston taking down West Virginia 70-54, the final score there. Let's start in Ames, where a Iowa State club without Milan Momcilovic, who is out with a hand injury. It is his non-shooting hand, but it sounds like he is going to be out for a significant period of time, potentially a month or more for Momcilovic and the Iowa State Cyclones. Good thing for a team like Iowa State, they have the best sixth man in the entire country in Curtis Jones, literally the best non-starter in the league. He steps into the starting lineup. What does he do? Oh, he just drops 25 points with 6 rebounds and a pair of steals, shot 9 of 17 from the field, which included a red-hot 5 of 6 from beyond the arc. When you got that guy stepping into a starting lineup, replacing a player like Momcilovic, who's shooting 48% from 3, your backup comes in, shoots 5 of 6 from beyond the arc. That's how you knock off the preseason number 1 team in the Kansas Jayhawks. It doesn't hurt that your center, Deshaun Jackson, who was actually not in the starting lineup in this game, played 20 minutes off the bench, had 17 points, 4 boards, and a block. TJ Otzelberger's ability to effortlessly navigate the transfer portal to land key pieces that fit perfectly onto this roster, like Jackson, the big man transfer from Charlotte, like Joshua Jefferson, the forward transfer from St. Mary's, like Brandon Chatfield, who stepped into the starting lineup, transfer from Seattle University. These guys all fit perfectly with what this team wants to do, and you saw how seamlessly, how effortlessly they played together against a Kansas team where that was not the case. Kansas went out and spent big money in the transfer portal. They landed a bunch of very, very talented players. But one of the big issues that Bill Self has had this year is the lack of cohesion, the lack of kind of knowing which player is going to step up, who's going to be that big player. They just haven't gotten the performances from the transfers that they've needed to. Led to 17 turnovers in this game against a very good Iowa State defense. The team shot just 5 of 11 from 3. 5 of 16 from 3. 5 of 11 would be good. 5 of 16, not so great. 4 of 11 from the free throw line, even worse. That's not going to get it done at all. Hunter Dickinson, All-American candidate, former All-American, comes out in a huge, huge game for Kansas, has just 6 points, 8 rebounds, 3 of 10 shooting. AJ Storr, their star transfer portal addition, guy who averaged 17 points per game last year at Wisconsin. He scores just 5 in this game with a pair of assists, 2 of 6 shooting. DeJuan Harris, 8.7 assists. You'll take that from him all day long. 1 of 6 from the free throw line in a game that doesn't, ultimately the final score doesn't look that close, but this thing was close at times in the second half. And to have your starting point guard not be able to contribute at the charity stripe is real brutal. This team now 3-2 in Big 12 play, 12-4 overall. Bill Self was 14-6 in his career in Ames. Coming into this game, drops to 14-7. Meanwhile, Iowa State, perfect 5-0 in conference play alongside the Cougars of Houston. 16-point win over West Virginia. These two teams are the cream of the crop in the Big 12. They don't face each other until February 22nd in Houston. That is a day to circle on the calendar already. That's going to be some fantastic basketball between two of the very best teams in the entire country. West Virginia falls to 3-2 in conference play, 12-4 overall. Mountaineers shot 41% from three against a very good Houston defense without Tucker DeVries. That is a fantastic result for West Virginia, but it did not lead to anything in the win column. Again, a 16-point loss here, in part because while they shot 41% from three, Houston shot 42.3%, specifically 11 of 26 from the three-point line. LJ Cryer made 5 out of his 10 three-point attempts. Emmanuel Sharp, 3 out of 8 from beyond the arc. The big story, though, was Juwan Roberts, 22 points for him on the interior, along with 3 rebounds. He was a very, very excellent 10 of 13 from the field. Iowa State and Houston, they were 2 of the best in this conference last year. They are shaping up to be 2 of the best in the conference, if not the 2 best in the conference this year. Meanwhile, Kansas probably going to fall out of the top 10 with this loss here, even though it's not a bad loss per se to the number 2 team in the country. The Jayhawks still stumbling a little bit, getting into conference play. Baylor and Arizona just played each other while Arizona got the W there. Neither team looks like the top 10 teams that they were projected to be before the season began. Meanwhile, Iowa State, Houston, they are the 2 teams to beat pretty clearly at this point in Big 12 conference play. Looking over at the Big 10 before we move on to the second segment, Tom Izzo and Michigan State remain undefeated in conference play. They beat Penn State on Wednesday, 90-85 is the final score. Is now a 10-game winning streak for Michigan State. The last time they had a 10-game winning streak, that was in 2019, the year they went to the Final Four. Some real good stuff brewing for Izzo in East Lansing. The Spartans won this game despite shooting 6 of 23 from beyond the arc, in part because Frankie Fiddler, what a great game he had coming off the bench. The Omaha transfer, 18 points, 7 boards, and 4 steals on a very efficient 8 of 13 shooting. Jaden Akins had 16.6 boards, 3 assists as well. Meanwhile, for Penn State, the good news, they got Ace Baldwin back. He'd been missing the last few games with an injury. He comes back, has 20 points on 9 assists. 20 points, 9 assists on 4 of 8 shooting. The bad news for Penn State, not only do they take the loss here, they also lose starter Puff Johnson coming off a 15-point game. In this game, he played just 6 minutes, had 3 points before exiting with a hand injury as I record this late on Wednesday night. No status update for Puff, but that's a tough loss if he's out for an extended period for this Penn State squad. One more Big Ten result to talk about here. Purdue goes out to Seattle, takes a win over Washington, 69-58. Purdue was down 8 at halftime, 30-22 the halftime score. They end up outscoring the Huskies by 19 in the second half to move to 6-1 in conference play. Sends the Huskies down to 1-6 in the Big Ten. A struggle for Danny Sprinkle in his first season at UW, this team's first season in the Big Ten Conference. Certainly wasn't because of great Osspor. He was, pun intended, great in this game for UW. 28 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, and 3 steals. He was 8 of 9 from the field, including a perfect 5 of 5 from beyond the arc. A fantastic game from great Osspor in this one. Unfortunately, was not enough for Washington to pull off a big-time upset over Purdue. Trey Kaufman-Renn, 19.6 boards, 3 assists. Braden Smith, another very, very great stat line for him. 17.6 boards, 5 assists, and 5 steals. 7 of 14 from the field, including 1 of 8 from 3. Purdue continues to roll in the post-Zach Edey era for Matt Painter and the Boilermakers. Well, Tennessee is back in the win column. We had a bonkers 3 overtime game out of the A-10. More on those Wednesday games coming up here in just a second. The first, folks, from the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly, no waiting around for your winnings. So whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Looking at college hoops, Gonzaga opens 9.5-point favorites on the road against Oregon State in Corvallis on Thursday, part of the new look WCC. You like those lines? You like that line? You like any of the other lines on FanDuel? Check it out, FanDuel.com to join today. As a reminder, you'll get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, folks, segment 2 here. A couple SEC results to get to before we talk some A-10 basketball and a wild game between UMass and Fordham. We'll start with Tennessee. Dominates in the second half to pick up a win against Georgia, avoid another loss after that loss to Florida. 2 weeks ago, Tennessee, they were down 1 at halftime against a very, very good Georgia club, end up outscoring them 49-30 in the second half to pick up a comfortable 74-56 win. The Vols now 16-1 on the year, including 3-1 in conference play. Meanwhile, Georgia falls to 2-2 in the SEC, but they're still 14-3 overall. One of the things we talked about earlier this week on Tuesday's show was the comments made by Rick Barnes regarding Chaz Lanier, their star transfer portal addition. Chaz got benched in that game earlier that week where he got benched. Rick Barnes said, hey, we're benching him because he didn't run the play and he's getting paid to shoot the basketball. He didn't shoot the basketball. One of the things we talked about was whether Rick Barnes was correctly assessing that Chaz Lanier is somebody who would respond positively to that kind of feedback. I'm not saying a 1-game sample size tells you anything, but I'll tell you this. Chaz Lanier, 5 points on 2 of 16 shooting in this game, including 1 of 9 from 3. Sure didn't seem shy shooting the basketball with 16 field goal attempts, including 9 3-point attempts. The ball was not going in the net at all. 5 points in this game for Lanier. Hopefully something that he can right the ship, work it out with the coaching staff, get himself right, because this Tennessee team, their ceiling is a lot lower if Chaz Lanier is not the 20-point per game scorer that he's been up to this point this season. Fortunately for them, bailed out by a great game off the bench from Jordan Gainey, 19 points, 7 boards of 6 of 12 shooting. Zakai Ziegler, also fantastic in this one, 16 points, 7 assists, 6 steals, 4 of 8 from 3. Meanwhile, Tennessee's defense, excellent against this Georgia club. They shot under 38% from the field. They were just 6 of 21 from 3. Shout out Asa Newell, though, freshman forward, had 13 points, 5 boards, was an efficient 4 of 8 from the field. Elsewhere in the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma squared off their first matchup as SEC teams against each other. This game was in Norman. Both teams came into the game 0-3 in the SEC. Somebody was going to come out ahead with their first win in conference play. That ended up being Rodney Terry and the Longhorns. Win this one 77-73, even without Kendall Weaver, who missed the Tennessee game last week. He's been out for now 2 games in a row, one of their key reserves for a team that does not have a lot of bench depth. Tough for them to withstand not having Weaver, but they go out, get a W here thanks to Jordan Pope. Oregon State transfer, had 27 points and 4 steals, shot 9 of 17 from the field. Freshman Trey Johnson adds 16 and 4 along with 3 steals. We mentioned the depth for Texas. In a game where they scored 77 points, 1 point came from their bench. Zarik Onyema, 1 point. That's it. That's it. No Kendall Weaver, obviously a factor there, but wow, to not have any production, basically any production from your bench is going to continue to be a problem for Coach Terry and this Longhorns team. Was enough for them to get the W over Porter Moser in Oklahoma, who's kind of doing the same thing that they did last year, where you play great in the non-conference portion of the season, get yourself in the top 25, get yourself put in the conversation to be an easy spot in the NCAA tournament, struggle mightily in conference play to the point where you end up getting not making the tournament on the wrong side of the bubble. We'll see if Oklahoma can turn it around, but they're now 0-4 in conference play. They're a team that no longer looks like a lock to be in the NCAA tournament, despite being ranked, despite being winning the battle for Atlantis, doing all the successful things they did in the non-conference. Jalon Moore, 29 points, 8 boards, 9 of 13 shooting for the Sooners. Meanwhile, Jeremy Fears, their freshman guard, 20 points, 5 boards, 2 steals. He did have 6 turnovers. He's one of the youngest players in college basketball. That's going to happen. 7 of 13 shooting for him. 2 results we want to talk about quickly in the A-10 here. First up, George Mason wins at Dayton, 67-59. The final score there. George Mason put this thing out of reach early. They're at 41-27 at halftime against a Dayton team that had expectations of winning the A-10, had a strong non-conference, looked like a team that nobody would want to face in March. They're now 1-3 in the A-10. They're 11-6 overall, and unless they win that conference tournament, nobody's going to have to worry about whether they want to face them in March or not, because they're not going to be there. Nate Santos, 20 points on 4 of 8 shooting for the Flyers. Meanwhile, George Mason, they're now 13-5 on the year. They're 4-1 in conference play. They shot 55%, 11 of 20 from beyond the arc in this game, looking like a real strong team here. The Patriots, Darius Maddox led this team with 20 points, 4 of 5 from 3. He tacked on 4 assists as well. Not the most exciting result in the A-10, though. That certainly belongs to this epic game between UMass and Fordham, 120-118, 3 overtimes. And I say exciting, but for watching this game, probably wouldn't exactly use the term exciting to describe this game. 79 fouls were called in this game. Now, evenly, as even as you can possibly get with 79 fouls called, 40 on one team, 39 on the other, but 79 total fouls called is an NCAA record-breaking game here between UMass and Fordham. 9 total players fouled out of this game. That is also an NCAA tournament record. The free throw numbers are staggering. Fordham shot 48 of 65 from the free throw line. Meanwhile, UMass 37 of 57. Both teams missed 15 plus free throws in this game. Complete and total insanity. Somewhere lost in the shuffle of this craziness, Rasul Diggins for UMass, 46 points. He shot 14 of 29 from the field. He shot a blistering hot 8 of 13 from beyond the arc. Jackie Johnson had 36 for Fordham. He was 4 of 18 from 3 in this one. You see teams shoot 4 of 18 from 3 in a game. For one player to do it is just ridiculous. What an insane game here. Nice win for UMass, but just chaos in the Atlantic 10. Last game to talk about here before we get you ready by previewing some of Thursday's games. North Carolina finally had themselves a relatively comfortable win in conference play. They hadn't really played anybody comfortably this year, at least not anybody at the power level. They've been struggling against basically every power opponent that they've played this year, but they got themselves a get-right game against the Golden Bears of Cal, beat them 79-53. Like we said, very comfortable win for the Tar Heels, who are now 5-1 in conference play, 12-6 overall. North Carolina, who struggled in the front court, didn't get the big player additions they wanted in the front court in the offseason, but they still managed a comfortable 45-33 rebounding advantage against this Golden Bears team. Ian Jackson, star freshman for them, 20 points and 7 boards. He was 8 of 15 from the field. Elliot Cadeau had 15 points, 3 boards, 3 assists as well. RJ Davis continues to struggle this season for Coach Davis and the Heels. 7 points on just 2 of 9 shooting. However, for North Carolina, real great to have Seth Trimble back in the mix. He'd missed some time with an injury. He's one of the best defenders on this team. Came off the bench in this one at 12 points, 6 rebounds, 3 steals, was a perfect 6 of 6 from the free throw line. Meanwhile, Cal shot a horrific 3 of 25 from the three-point line in this one. Andrei Stojakovic, just 6 points on 3 of 13 shooting. That included missing all 5 of his three-point attempts. Madi Sissoko had a nice game for Coach Madsen and the Golden Bears. 16 points, 8 boards, a pair of assists, and a nearly perfect 8 of 9 from the field, but it was not nearly enough for Cal to go across the country and try to pick up a win in Chapel Hill against the Tar Heels. Well, folks, like I said, we're going to close out the show taking a look at Thursday's action, including, we know Michigan State's still undefeated in conference play. Can Michigan continue that streak as well? They got themselves a road tilt in conference play. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But first, folks, PrizePicks is the place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, PrizePicks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least 2 players. And if your pick hits, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. That's right, 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. We're talking about this Michigan-Minnesota game coming up. Danny Wolf, more or less at 11.5 points. Meanwhile, Vlad Golden, his partner in the front court, more or less 17.5. You think both are going to hit the over on that. Definitely head to Prize Picks. It's fun. It's fun to predict. It's easy to play. Plus, with Prize Picks' flex play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks. Run your game. All right, folks, segment 3, still Andy Patton, still Locked On College Basketball Podcast, and we are looking ahead to tonight's slate of games. Thursday's typically slower than most of the other days of the week. We've got these really big Tuesdays lately. We know big Mondays coming up just around the corner. We've seen some more teams pick up action, more conferences on Fridays, but Thursdays still tend to be kind of slow. However, this is not that bad of a slate. We got 5 games we're going to talk about here. 3 of them in the Big Ten. 2 other ones are mid-major games featuring ranked opponents. We'll start with the 18th ranked Tigers of Memphis going on the road at the Temple Owls in AAC play, 7 Eastern time for this one on ESPN2. FanDuel currently giving Memphis the 8.5-point advantage. So far, so good for Memphis. We talked about this with Oklahoma. Talked about this with a few other teams. Clemson has been notorious for this, of having a good non-conference slate and then struggling enough in conference play to either take yourself fully out of the NCAA tournament picture or at least dramatically hurt your stock. And Memphis last year was ranked as high as number 10, didn't even make the tournament. This year had some really high ranking and came into the AAC, and it was kind of like, is it going to happen again? So far, so good. They are 3-0 in conference play. Their last 2 wins were only by 4 points each, but granted, it was North Texas, who's very good, and East Carolina. Now they go on the road at Temple. Quality team in Temple. Memphis favored by 8.5. If they can go get a W here on the road against a quality conference team, that'll continue to give us some confidence that Penny Hardaway can do it this year, can get this team, not only get them back into the big dance, but really make some noise, potentially earn a 5 seed, 6 seed, somewhere in there and make it to the Sweet 16, maybe even farther than that for Penny and the Tigers. Next up, couple Big Ten games to talk about here. We got Michigan, the 20th ranked Wolverines on the road at Minnesota, also 7 Eastern time. This one's on FS1. FanDuel favors Michigan by 10.5. The main question, Michigan has not lost a game in the Big Ten. Minnesota has not won one in the Big Ten. Can either team, or can both teams, I guess, lose their streaks if Minnesota can pull off an upset here? We talked about that 2-headed monster in the front court for Dusty May's club, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden, the way that they are utilizing 2 7-footers on the floor at the same time. Extremely rare in the modern college basketball game, but Wolf has such a dynamic fluidity to his game and the ability to put the ball on the deck, make passes, play make. It really creates such a difficult dynamic for opposing teams to try to defend both Golden and Wolf, and we've seen it be utilized to perfection by Dusty May and this Michigan club. I expect they'll continue to do so against a Minnesota team that I just don't think has the size and requisite defensive ability to slow this Michigan team down, even with Michigan playing this one on the road. Next up, we got Maryland going on the road at Northwestern, 9 Eastern time on the Big Ten Network. FanDuel giving Maryland a 1.5-point advantage in this one. Terps 12-1 in non-conference, but have stumbled a little bit in conference play, just 3-3. Meanwhile, Northwestern was 9-2 in the non-conference, but is just down to 1-4 in conference play. It's going to come down in a lot of ways to Derek Queen and what he's able to do in the front court for this Terps club. I expect them to pull off the W here again. 2 opportunities for the road teams to get W's in the Big Ten, with Michigan expected to beat Minnesota, Maryland expected to go beat Northwestern. And then there's no FanDuel line for this one, but you got another chance for a road team to win here. Rutgers going on the road at Fred Hoiberg and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This game's at 9 Eastern on FS1 right after that Michigan-Minnesota game. Big question, as always, for Rutgers. Who steps up that's not named Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey? Those 2 guys have been absolute studs, helped lead Rutgers to that big win over UCLA. But without them, there's just not a ton of other depth on this roster. Very curious to see if Nebraska is able to shut either of the 2 freshman stars down. If so, if that could potentially lead the Cornhuskers to picking up another win at home in the Big Ten. Last but not least, we got the 16th ranked Zags Mark Few's club going on the road to Corvallis to take on Wayne Tinkle and the Oregon State Beavers. This game is at 11 Eastern time, is on the CBS Sports Network. FanDuel favors the Zags by 9.5 points. These two schools are only about 450 miles apart, and yet this is the first time they have played each other in 34 years, dating back to January of 1991. Obviously, Oregon State is a temporary member of the WCC, so this is a conference matchup between Gonzaga and Oregon State, and it will continue to be a conference matchup well after Oregon State's stint in the WCC is over, as both these teams will be in the Pac-12. Gonzaga joining the Pac-12, Oregon State coming back to their home, the Pac-12, starting in the 2026-27 season. So this is kind of a nice glimpse. Gonzaga coming off a big win over Washington State, another team they are going to be indefinitely locked into the same conference with going forward. So Gonzaga got their win over their in-state rival, Washington State, now looking to go on the road, get a win over another new potential rival, although Oregon State has not had much of a sustained history in men's basketball. They're playing pretty good ball this year, 3-2 in conference play. They picked up some wins, let's put it that way. They have 13 wins on the year. 10 of them are quad 4. One of them is non-D1. One of them is Charleston, which is quad 3. And then the only quad 2 win for them, they don't have any quad 1 wins, is UC Irvine, who they beat at home. So at least they haven't lost too many games. 5 losses. They lost to Oregon. They have some other losses that aren't great. They lost on the road to LMU by 21 points. But this is a decent Oregon State team, better than they've been the last few years under Coach Tinkle. Gonzaga should handle this game. This is the kind of team you're supposed to beat, even on the road for the Zags. They're 5-0 in conference play right now, picking up that win over Washington State and their opportunity to beat a future Pac-12 foe on Thursday night. Again, if you're on the East Coast, you want to watch this one, get your coffee ready. It doesn't tip off till 11 Eastern time, but should be some fun high-level hoops late into the night between these two teams. It's going to wrap it up for me today here on the Locked On College Basketball Podcast. Folks, thank you so much for making the show your first listen or your first watch of the day. Looking forward to getting back with you all on Friday with co-host Isaac Shade, and then I'll be with you all again on Saturday with Leaf Tulane on our regular game night episode, Saturday nights live. We're doing it. This will be the 3rd episode. Really excited to get a chance to recap all of the great Saturday action with Leaf on Saturday. Thanks again for listening, folks. Have a fantastic rest of your day. As always, we want to say apologies to the Lawyer family. Didn't shout him out earlier talking about Purdue's win. Let's go Wildcats. Northwestern got a chance to pick up a big win. And until Friday, peace out.